that time of year again. Woo! That sounded less enthusiastic than it is. It's a sincere woo, even if it doesn't sound that way, because it's my favourite time of the year. Not just because it's Christmas, though I do love Christmas. I love the Continental Classic so much. I don't think I can fully express how much I love it. One of my biggest pet peeves in wrestling is the predictability of it, which I get because it's storytelling first and foremost, and the people who win 9 times out of 10 it's because that's the thing that tells the best story. I get that. I love the Continental Classic. I love the unpredictability of it and the kind of sports presentation of it, even though I'm not a big sports fan generally. I don't know, there's just something about it that feels magical, and I am very hyped for this year. So we are going to talk about it, what it is, how it works, stuff that I did on my presentation last year. Though I've made new slides, I could have copied them. Be proud of me. I put in the work. And then who's in it. And then I actually, first time ever doing one of these things, did research about the people and who they had or hadn't faced before, because normally I just do these things from memory, but a lot of this stuff, long and storied histories that I don't know about in other companies. And then we will get to my predictions. Sound good? What is it? It's a tournament, a round robin tournament, which is like, I was going to say everyone fights everyone, but that's not technically true because it's separated into 2 leagues. Each league has 6 competitors, and each of those 6 will face off against the other 5, and they will score points. And then the 2 people with the highest points will face off against each other to determine which gets to go through to the final. And then the final will take place at AEW World's End, which is the next pay-per-view at the end of December. But how does it work? Rule time. 20-minute time limit. Everyone is banned from ringside, so if you're part of a faction, which some of these people are, they can't be at ringside, basically to prevent cheating and stuff like that. If you win your match, you get 3 points. If you draw, gets the time limit and no one's been pinned or submitted, both competitors will get 1 point, 0 points for a loss. So we don't want to lose if you want to win. Top 2 in each league face off against one another, and then that determines who goes through to World's End to compete for the belt. Split into 2 leagues, as I said, 6 competitors in each. Gold League, Blue League. We're going to go through the Gold League competitors first, and then we will go through the Blue League, and then we will get to the fun part where I make my predictions. Let's just pop me over here so I don't block his name, even though if you watch AEW you should know who this man is. It is Will Ospreay. So he's coming off a loss at Full Gear, which happened on Saturday. He lost to who was his best friend, is now not his best friend, Kyle Fletcher, and he has a very poorly neck in kayfabe. This is an aside, doesn't mean anything. I don't like neck injuries in kayfabe because they worry me too much. I would much rather you pretend that you hurt your foot or your arm or something where it's like, oh, that can be fixed. I say, even though Chuck Taylor's retired from an ankle injury and Adam Cole's been off for so long with an ankle injury. But you know what I mean. Next, this something about it, it's just icky and scary, but that's what we're going with. He has a very poorly neck after Kyle Fletcher gave him a Tiger Driver 91. That's a move where you just basically get dropped on your head, and he's very much playing into that. Okay, a bit of a spoiler alert, but I'm getting to them anyway, so it shouldn't matter that much. Kazuchika Okada is also in this tournament. He is the current champion. He currently has the Continental Crown, I think is what it's called, Continental Crown belt. But important to note that Okada beat Will Ospreay in the final of the New Japan G1 Climax in 2022. G1 Climax is basically a similar thing, round robin tournament, everyone competes against everyone. Similar format. Things haven't been going his way lately. When he came into AEW at the beginning of this year, very much on a winning streak for a while. And then in June, he lost to Swerve Strickland at Forbidden Door, I think it was. But it didn't stop his momentum. Won the International Championship, lost it, won it again, lost it again, and things have been going downhill since then. I'm glad. That sounds mean, but it's hard to support someone who's winning all the time. We love an underdog. We will get to an underdog later. Then we have Ricochet, who also is coming off a loss at Full Gear. He lost to Konosuke Takeshita. I love Takeshita. I'm glad that Ricochet lost. I'm throwing it out there. But he's coming into the tournament not happy. He and Will Ospreay have history that Will was often compared to Ricochet because they were in New Japan at a similar time, but Will Ospreay was like young and just coming up, and Ricochet was like one of the big stars of the company. So there's always been like a Will Ospreay's the little brother, like, oh, you know Ricochet, like, you're not at that level, like, you're good, but you're not him. And then they had a match on the 5th anniversary of Dynamite. It went to a time limit draw. They were both in a 3-way match at WrestleDream for the international title, but it was won by Konosuke Takeshita. Ricochet was upset by that because Takeshita pinned Will Ospreay, and he was upset that he'd lost the chance for the belt without ever getting pinned for it. So he challenged for the belt at Full Gear, lost. Rightfully so, in my opinion. But he's mad about it. And it will be interesting to see whether or not we actually get a winner for the Ospreay versus Ricochet thing, or if it's going to be another draw. We will see. Then we have Darby Allin. I only mentioned the Death Riders because it's important for one match and one match alone. Darby Allin has beef with Jon Moxley and the Death Riders, who are basically these guys who are taking over the company and beating people up and being mean. And Darby Allin, because he's a maniac, crashed his car into their car at Full Gear, even though they weren't in their car, so there was like no point. He just did it because he wanted to do it. He has no history with Ospreay or Ricochet that I've been able to find in my 10 minutes of research that I've done. But Claudio Castagnoli is also in this tournament, in this league. They faced off on Dynamite not long ago, and Claudio won. So probably looking for revenge for that, and also just to take out some of his anger at what they're doing and the company running roughshod and attacking people, because that's not nice. He also has beef with Brody King. He has for a long time, but most important to note, their most recent match was at WrestleDream, and Darby Allin won. Prior to that, Darby had never pinned Brody King. Brody never lost to him on the independent scene. They wrestled several times. 3 times, I wrote here. But the AEW record, Darby has 2 wins over Brody, even though one of them was a coffee match, so he didn't technically pin Brody King or anything. So Brody might be looking to make that 2-1 record 2-2. Next, we have Claudio Castagnoli. Yes, I had to use this photo. Yes, it's very old. It's the only photo of Claudio I had on my phone, and I love it. So I'm using it. I can do that. I made the presentation. That's my decision. So he's a member of Jon Moxley's Death Riders. He was doing a lot of Jon Moxley's bidding, attacking people. We talked about the match with Darby. He was in the Continental Classic last year, but it was a draw with Bryan Danielson that stopped him from making it to the semi-final, which kind of fed in to Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. They forcibly retired Bryan Danielson earlier this year, which led to this storyline. Part of the reason why I'm so excited about the Continental Classic is because it really does kind of set up these storylines for the next year of AEW. Even if it's a slow burn like this, where it takes 9 months to fully get to it, it's worth it, and it's amazing, and it's exciting. It's exciting. We should be excited. As for his record, he lost to Will Ospreay. Only had 1 match together, so maybe he's going to try and recoup that. I believe that was him challenging for the international title, but I'm not sure. I didn't write that down. Apparently, my research did not go far enough. He was beaten a lot by Ricochet in WWE, but I don't think that that's going to count towards any of this. It's not that records in different companies don't count, because New Japan stuff often gets brought up, but not so much with WWE. And also, he was Cesaro then. Cesaro and Claudio Castagnoli. Different people. Completely different world. Brody King, who we'll get to last, beat Claudio in the Continental Classic last year, because they were both in it. We'll see if that factors into anything. He is currently one of the Trios champions with Wheeler Yuta and Pac. I bring this up because it might become relevant when we talk about Juice Robinson and possibly Brody King. And as I've written there, I don't care if he's evil. I love him. I do. I want him to kick Darby's ass again. In all honesty, I do. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want it. I just love Claudio. Brody King, on to him. Member of the House of Black. C2 last year, but a loss to Daniel Garcia in his last match of the tournament stopped him from reaching the semi-final. Important to note, Daniel Garcia is also in this tournament, but he's not in the same league, so I think that's probably done deliberately so that they don't have to do that storyline, because the House of Black did feud with Daniel Garcia and FTR at the beginning of the year following the end of this tournament, so that storyline is done. Forever beef with Darby Allin. We've already discussed that. I mentioned Claudio was the Trios champion because House of Black and the Bang Bang Gang, I think they referred themselves to Bullet Club Gold, I don't know, were in a ladder match for the Trios titles at All In, which is where Claudio and the Death Riders won the titles. House of Black were in that match, so that might come into play with his match with Claudio, as well as Claudio trying to recover that win from last year. Other than the Forever beef with Darby Allin and potentially the Trios match, he's not wrestled Ospreay, he's not wrestled Ricochet, he has not wrestled Juice Robinson, who will be, spoiler alert, the last person that we talk about. So it'll be interesting to see. A lot of these matches are first time ever matchups, which is part of the reason why the Continental Classic is great, because we get these matchups that would never otherwise happen, because storyline wise they don't make sense. Finally, we have Juice Robinson, who's a member of Bullet Club Gold / the Bang Bang Gang. I don't know why they keep flitting between the names. I prefer Bullet Club Gold. Bang Bang Gang's a little bit of a mouthful. He's a bit crazy, and I think he's probably here just to lose, but it's going to be fun to see him separated from Bullet Club Gold and get to showcase his skills on his own, which they've not really been able to do for a while, because Jay White is the leader of Bullet Club Gold, so it's very much been about him in singles action, and then the rest of Bullet Club Gold in trios and tags, and they were the trios champs for a little while, and then they weren't, and then that led to 2 matches at All In, which led to the Death Riders getting the titles. Not necessarily that important. Juice has lost to Darby. He lost in January of 2023. Only match they've ever had, when Darby was TNT champion. He lost to Ospreay in the G1 in 2022. However, earlier in that year, Juice won the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship in a 4-way that Will Ospreay was also in. I don't think that's going to come into play, really. I don't know who Juice actually pinned in order to get that title. Like, it could have just been that Will was, like, on the sidelines. So, I don't know if any of that history is really going to come into play. They do tend to mention, like, whenever it's like, oh, we've faced before. But I don't know how detailed they're going to get to it if they've only ever faced off, like, a few times. Or if they've faced off in, like, companies that we don't want to mention in AEW. Namely WWE. So, some of this stuff, I don't know if it's ever going to come up. But I did the research, so I'm going to say anyway. And that is all of the Gold League. I feel like this league is very difficult to call in terms of results. Juice Robinson, realistically, is going to lose a lot of matches. I'm sorry, Juice. I love you, but that's just the way it is when you're in a league with Will Ospreay and Ricochet and Darby Allin and Claudio Castagnoli. Sorry, also to Brody King, because I realise I've left him out of that mix. It's just the way that it is in terms of storyline, in terms of level of star and all that lot. Some people have to lose in this tournament, and that's why it's so great, because sometimes the good people who've never lost before lose. And that's always fun to see how they deal with loss. So, that is the Gold League. Blue League time. First in the Blue League is Kazuchika Okada, who is the current Continental Crown champion. He beat Eddie Kingston within a few weeks of him joining the company, which was very fun. He's a member of the Elite. I don't think that that's actually really gonna come into play much, except for maybe with Mark Briscoe. I should move my camera. Let's go over here. So he's basically trying to prove that he's the best tournament wrestler of all time. I realised that when I said I did my research, I did not do enough research, because I know that he has won the G1 Climax, I believe it's 4 times. There's a guy who has won it 5 times. So coming in this, it's his way of trying to prove that he's the best tournament wrestler of all time. He's not actually faced that many people in the Blue League, so it's going to be fun to watch him wrestle. He's not wrestled that much since joining AEW earlier this year. It's very much been kind of not on the sidelines, but character-wise, it's that thing of, I have a belt and I'm a heel, so I don't want to defend it very much because it's my belt and I'm keeping it for as long as possible. So it's going to be very interesting to suddenly see him wrestling every single week. I'm excited to see how that goes, because he's not someone that I've watched wrestle that much, because I don't watch New Japan. Because I can't afford to watch New Japan. I cannot afford any more subscription services. I will be bankrupt. Daniel Garcia. I will forever use this picture when talking about Daniel Garcia. It's just the way it is. I have it saved on my phone, and therefore it's the picture that's getting put in every single PowerPoint. So, Garcia, he's the current TNT champion, coming off a win at Volgear. Exciting stuff. We love a title change. He was in the C2 last year, but he lost every match except for one, which was the final match of the his final match of the tournament, where he beat Brody King, which basically prevented Brody King from getting through to the semi-final of the tournament, which, as I've said before, led to a feud at the beginning of the year. And the tournament was basically the start of Daniel Garcia's success. All of those losses led to like a real big babyface push of him, because he was so emotional and sincere and just great. He's just great. But it'll be interesting to see whether this tournament is full of losses again. Probably not, because he's been built up as he's now TNT champion. But then it's interesting to look at this list and try and work out who's gonna be losing all of the matches, because someone's got to lose, and he's got a TNT championship, so anyone who beats him in this tournament, you would assume, is going to come for that championship. So that has very exciting prospects for next year, unless he wins every match, which I don't think he's going to do. I'll just put that out there. And then we have Kyle Fletcher, who beat Will Ospreay at Full Gear. He started wearing a crown that he claims that now he's beat Will Ospreay. He's earned. I don't know if that was meant to be some sort of hint that he was going after the Continental Crown, or if it's just something that he's decided to do for fun. He challenged for the Continental Crown earlier in the year, in September, and he lost against Okada. He doesn't have a lot of history with a lot of the guys, whereas the Gold League, there is kind of history between a lot of the competitors in terms of having them having wrestled each other before. This league, it's more up in the air, and it's a lot more people who haven't faced off against one another. Kyle has only faced Okada and Mark Briscoe. He hasn't faced the other 3 competitors at all, and that is a similar case for most of them. Garcia hasn't faced any of these competitors before. So this is it's going to be fun. It's going to be possibly a bit wild. And then we have my personal favourite, who I know is just there to lose so that other people can win. But I love him so much, and I don't want to watch him lose every week. It's the Beast Mortos. He's a member of LFI, alongside Roosh and Drilistico, and they're managed by Jake the Snake Roberts. It's not really going to come into play because everyone's banned from ringside, so it doesn't really matter that he's part of a faction. He's on his own. He seems fairly chill, to be honest, for a beast. Their matches are going to be very, very fun, and he's probably going to lose all of them except one, and that will be a big upset and potentially lead to a feud. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it so badly. Please, please, please. If he's not going to win the tournament, give us storylines with the Beast Mortals. That's all I'm asking for. It's not a lot. Then we have Mark Briscoe, who was in the tournament last year and lost every match except his last one, which was against Jay Lethal, who's not in the tournament this year. So that one win doesn't really matter. But what matters is, in a very similar vein to Daniel Garcia, used those losses to really kind of endear him to the audience. I always call it the audience, like it's a theatre. I mean, wrestling is just experimental live theatre. The crowd loved him so much that it basically kind of catapulted him into AEW a lot more than he was being used before. He became Ring of Honor World Champion. He's probably set up to lose again in the tournament. Now he's no longer the Ring of Honor World Champion, but he's probably the purest babyface out of every competitor, including Daniel Garcia, I would argue. He's the easiest guy to root for, so sticking him in a competition with heels is a good way to go about it. You know, because Okada's a heel, Kyle Fletcher's a heel, Shelton Benjamin's, I think, a heel. He's very good at getting the crowd to cheer for him. And that's something that you need in a tournament like this, especially when there's a lot of bad guys. So he competed for the Continental Crown Championship belt in a 4-way match at All Out. And he's faced against Okada. And he faced Okada in Blood and Guts, Team AEW versus Team Elite. He was on Team AEW because he's a good guy. Okada was on Team Elite because it's part of the Elite. He has faced Kyle Fletcher for the Ring of Honor World Championship, which Kyle Fletcher lost. I believe he got that match after Kyle Fletcher pinned him in like a multi-man tag match, but I might be wrong about that. My research went far, but not that far. Shelton Benjamin, who we'll get to in a second, they've not faced each other one-on-one, but they've faced each other a lot in Ring of Honor over a decade ago in the tag division. And Beast Mortos challenged Mark Briscoe for the Ring of Honor World title in August, but he was unsuccessful. So actually, out of everyone, Briscoe's kind of faced the most of these competitors in terms of like having history with them, which is interesting, but I don't know if it's going to come up. And then we have Shelton Benjamin, who is a member of the Hurt Syndicate, but obviously they can't come to ringside. He is new in AEW, so he's probably here to build momentum for him and his faction and show off what he can do, because I assume that there are a lot of people like me. He was in WWE for a while, but there'll be people like me who've never watched WWE and don't know what he's capable of. And he's not had that many matches in AEW. One of his biggest matches in AEW was versus Swerve Strickland, which he lost, so it's probably going to help him regain those wins and build momentum. And I'm very excited about it, because even though I've only seen him wrestle a couple of times, I love him. I think he's great. He and Okada have met a few times, but it was in like tag or team matches in New Japan, and it was over a decade ago, so that's probably not gonna come into anything. He's never faced Kyle Fletcher, he's never faced Daniel Garcia, he's never faced the Beast Mortos. He and Briscoe, obviously, they tag feud for a long time, a decade ago. It was a 4-5 record, so Shelton as part of Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team. That was what they were called. Beat the Briscoes 4 times. The Briscoes beat the World's Greatest Tag Team 5 times. So maybe he wants to balance those odds out and make it 5-5, even though it would be a singles match, not a tag match. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see if any of that Ring of Honor history comes back to this, especially considering that Ring of Honor and AEW are owned by the same guy. So it's very possible that we might get vignettes of their time over a decade ago, wrestling against one another. Now it's time for my predictions, and we're going to move me somewhere else. I did these predictions yesterday, and I very quickly changed my mind about decisions. So I could read these predictions and immediately say, no, I don't think that's what's going to happen, even though it has been less than 24 hours since I wrote them. But we'll see. It's going to be a surprise for me to look at them just as much as it will be for you, because I cannot remember what I predicted. It's a very balanced score system. My main prediction is that I think that Juice Robinson's going to stop. Like, I don't really want to go through, like, every single match and every single thing, because not a lot of them aren't relevant. My main prediction is Darby Allin's going to recoup his loss from Claudio Castagnoli from not that long ago. I think that Juice Robinson is going to rob Brody King of the tournament once again. I think it's going to be a repeat of what it was last year, which is going to infuriate him even more that he's been robbed of this opportunity to be in the tournament by a guy who has historically lost all of his matches. And I think that's then going to lead to a Bullet Club Gold versus House of Black feud. I think that it's going to end up being Will versus Ricochet in the semi-final, and I've put Ricochet wins the semi-final because I think that they're going to really feed into this Will Ospreay neck injury thing, and it's going to be an on-running storyline similar to, if anyone remembers, Orange Cassidy's first international title reign, where he was just wrestling week on week on week, and he was covered in more and more and more kinesio tape, and it was just that thing of like he's going to keep going until his back completely gives out. I think they're going to do a similar thing with Will Ospreay and his neck, where he will keep being in the tournament and then his neck's going to just give out in the semi-final, and then he's probably going to go away for a little while and have a little rest, have a nice Christmas with his family. Well deserved. He's worked hard. They've all worked hard. They all deserve a nice Christmas. Let's just cancel World's End. Everyone gets 2 weeks off for Christmas. How about that? The reason I think Ricochet kind of has to go this distance is, and we'll get to Shelton Benjamin in the next one, is that I think that Shelton Benjamin can afford to lose because he's part of a faction and he's kind of not been built up as the main guy in that faction. I know that sounds rude, but like, I don't mean it in like an offensive, like he's not the star or anything, but I think when you're in a faction of powerful people, you can have some of those powerful people take losses. Like the Don Callis family has Brian Cage and Lance Archer, who are more likely to, and Kyle Fletcher until recently, take those losses, but you can still be seen as like a dominant faction because Konosuke Takeshita's like gonna wreck your shit if you get involved with him, kind of thing. Ricochet is also new to the company, and I don't think you can have him lose multiple times because he's not part of a faction, unless he ends up joining the Hurt Syndicate, which I don't think he will. But anyway, I think that Ricochet is going to go through to the semi-final. I'm happy with these results. I'm surprised I'm as happy with my predictions as I thought I would be. I thought I would look at it and be like, I'm completely off base, that makes no sense. I do believe I still believe that this is going to happen, sticking with my convictions for once. I can't remember who I was thinking that Ricochet would face, so we'll find out together who I thought was going to win the Blue League. I feel like I've had this play out very similarly to the Gold League. Mark Briscoe, part of the conglomeration, I kind of figured that if his only win was against the Beast Mortos, then maybe we would get a conglomeration LFI feud. I don't necessarily think that's what's going to happen because the John Moxley and the Death Riders are a much more important feud right now, and the conglomeration are a part of that. But I threw that in there anyway. I don't know. I think this league is exciting in the sense of it's hard to predict where things are going to go, given that it's a lot of people, apart from the Beast Mortals, who have been massively built up recently and who've had a lot of wins. And Matt Briscoe, I guess. Matt Briscoe's lost a fair amount recently. But Daniel Garcia, and then Kyle Fletcher's just come off a big win with Will Ospreay, and then you've got Okada, who's Okada, and Shelton Benjamin, who's, you know, part of one of the sort of most exciting factions in AEW at the minute. I think my main point of this was that I don't think Kyle Fletcher's going to win a lot, but I do think that he will beat Daniel Garcia, and I think that that will lead to him being potentially the first challenger for the TNT Championship. Whether he wins that, I don't know. I'm still praying for an Aussie Open reunion. I want Aussie Open, heel Aussie Open, to be the people to beat Private Pie, and just keep throwing that out into the wind. I want Mark Davis to decide to be evil, and I want them to beat Private Pie. But I don't know how likely that is to happen right now. I think there's no way that you can't have Okada win a lot of matches, especially right now, given that the Elite is kind of on the back burner. The Young Bucks have disappeared into the void, and we've not seen Jack Perry and Okada hang out, because the Elite is very much a case of, we're both friends with these two people, and then when those two people leave, you're just looking around like, I don't really know this guy. I think it's very much that kind of situation where they're both on their own now, and the Elite is not important. So I think you need Okada to stand on his own 2 feet and win a lot of matches. And similarly, I think you need Shelton Benjamin to do the same thing. He's new in the company, lost his last big match to Swerve Strickland. I think he needs to rack up some wins. I just think he needs to kill some people. And then I have Okada going through to the semi-final. I've predicted that, but if we're going with my heart and what I want to happen, I would much prefer Shelton Benjamin to win, and it be Shelton Benjamin versus Ricochet in the final, especially considering that the Hurt Syndicate tried to recruit Ricochet, and he was a bit like, I'm not interested, I'm going on my own, and he's not received any retaliation from that yet. So it would be interesting to see some of that retaliation come out during that final. I don't know if that's going to happen. I am fairly certain it's going to be Shelton Benjamin versus Kazuchika Okada in the semi-final. That I'm like dead set. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Because then anyone that Garcia loses to, okay, Kyle Fletcher, can then challenge for the TNT champion, and you've got a storyline already set up for leading into next year. Especially since AEW is going to Australia in February for Grand Slam. Kyle Fletcher's Australian. You could have the TNT Championship on that big match. I think that's probably the direction that it would be heading in. I don't think storyline-wise there's as much in this league, because it's kind of just a bunch of lads, of people who don't necessarily have that much history, and it's just first-time matchups, which is what this league's basically about, being able to put people together that haven't been together before, and then maybe there'll be storylines that I've not thought of coming out of this. I might actually change that and say that I think that Shelton Benjamin's going to win the semi-final, and then I think that Ricochet is going to beat Shelton Benjamin in the final. I don't know what you do with Okada once he loses, though. That's the crux of a lot of these things, of like, what do you do with this person once they lose? And I don't know. But I do think Ricochet is making it to the final. That I'm pretty solid on. He's the only one that makes sense to me, that Ricochet would make it through to the final and win the belt. I'm just going to say it. I think Ricochet's going to win the belt. I think that's the best way to keep him away from Takeshita. He doesn't need to challenge for the International Championship if he has the Continental Crown Championship, because people who already have a belt should stop competing for other belts. Hence, I was not as pleased as I should be when Claudio Castagnoli appeared in this tournament, because he's a trios champion and they should be defending those belts. But that's neither here nor there. Ricochet for Continental Crown Champion this year, which will make my mum happy because he is her favourite wrestler. Those are my predictions. I would be interested in hearing what other people think. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who have completely different opinions of this, and I want to know them. Please tell me. Have fun on Wednesday when this all starts.